There's a small church in the south where the white wood siding has been faded by decades of summer heat. The old bell rusted silent in the tower, and the wooden pews would creak like they memorized every hymn ever sung inside. On Sundays, the choir hums before service begins. Fans wave slow through the air, filling the room with thick perfume and pine cleaner. And the elders filled the same seats they claimed for generations. But that would sadly soon change because there's a new pastor, and he wanted to modernize things. Give the house of the Lord a fresh look. He wanted to fix the roof, replace the old windows, maybe even clear out that junky basement, which no one had been in for years. But what he didn't know was that some things inside the church were never meant to be touched. Hey y'all, I'm BlaqueWitchYaya. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. And today we're going to talk about a moment where religious beliefs and spiritual tradition has collided. We see that a lot, but this takes place in the church. When the renovation crew started working downstairs, they found a small section of the wall that had clearly been sealed over, brick over plaster, hidden behind stacked chairs and broken hymn stands. They chipped at it until a small square opened. Behind the wall was a strange doll. At first glance, it didn't even look like a doll. It was small, maybe 10 inches tall, carved out from dark wood, the kind that would warp slightly from heat and time. The face wasn't detailed, just faint lines where the eyes and mouth were. But what stood out was everything around it was laced with fabric, wrapped tight around the body like a burial, brittle from age but still faintly smelling like oils and herbs. Around the doll's waist was a length of red thread tied 3 times, and inside the folds of lace were tiny bundles, what looked like salt, and a tiny piece of folded paper that's so old that it turned brown. And then there was the hair, long, coarse strands wrapped around his neck, secured with beeswax. Thinking it was something funny, the team told one of the deacons, and he froze while he stared at it. And then he said his grandmother used to tell him stories about dolls like that. Not toys, not trinkets. He called them prayer dolls, sometimes confused with voodoo dolls. But these were tools of protection, things people made when they couldn't speak their prayers out loud. He told the crew to leave it alone, put it back where it was. So the renovation team is now doing their thing with modernizing the church, but the deacon didn't feel right hiding the fact that there is a doll in the wall of the church. Of course, he knew what it was for, but he just didn't feel right not telling the pastor when he's putting in all of this money and energy to renovating the place. So he sat down and he told him. So you would think in this moment where the deacon is sharing with the pastor that there is a random doll buried in the wall of his church, that he would demonize it, say it's the work of the devil, burn it, pray over it, holy water. But surprisingly, he had a different reaction because the doll was familiar to him too. Like I said, this church is in the south, so a lot of people know what's going on. So he was familiar with the doll, but it didn't bring back good memories. See, when the pastor was a young boy, his grandmother used to tell him stories about the old days or the old ways, how the woman in her day would sing over their work, bless their homes, and bury charms under the steps for protection. But she would also share stories how she had to hide those things, how she get in trouble with the family that she worked for if she got caught humming those African hymns or burning herbs they didn't understand. They didn't want her to speak in any different language or with an accent that was too strong, or say sayings that they didn't get, because they all felt like that was a form of devil work or witchcraft. Like, you in our house and we don't understand you. What does that phrase mean? What are you doing over here? They were very suspicious of her, and when they felt like she was doing something devil-like, they would abuse her. So that memory softened him. Of course, it was mixed up with the lessons that his grandmother would teach him about hoodoo and doing the work, but the thought of his grandmother being harmed for doing the work that she was teaching, it didn't sit right with him. He wasn't afraid of the doll, just unsure what to do with it. So the pastor went down to the basement to see exactly where the doll was sitting, how it was placed, to see if he could somehow find the meaning behind it. Something in him felt a little bit uneasy, so he didn't want to get rid of the doll, so he just gently turned the doll around towards the wall to make sure it's not facing him, not facing the outside, not out of disrespect, just out of trying to quiet the energy, trying to hide it even more. But the next morning, it was turned right back around, sitting in its original position. He thought maybe one of the workers tried to fix it, thinking it was supposed to be back in that same spot. So he turned it around again, and by the end of the week, it was going back and forth being turned. He told the construction team like, hey, leave the doll turned this way. And they're like, but we always see it face towards us. We don't ever see it face the other way. But the pastor noticed every time he touched the doll to turn the face towards the inner wall, something went wrong. One of the workers would trip. Now they're short on a worker and the work is going to take even longer. There's a new crack in the wall. There's a new leak. A pipe would burst for no reason. So the cost of the renovation would keep increasing because it seemed like the more they worked, the more they would find. So the pastor would vent to the deacon like, they're about to run me dry with all this renovation stuff. I don't know what's going on. But he also told the deacon that he was turning the doll around. So the deacon didn't want to go against the pastor. So the deacon told his pastor, listen, I know this is going to sound weird. I don't want to scare you, but I'm listening to you tell me how you turn the doll. The next thing you know, a pipe burst. You turn the doll. There's a new leak upstairs. Leave the doll alone. It's been watching over this place for years. The neighborhood down the street got flooded. Somehow the church was skipped. Lightning struck the house across the street. Somehow the church was skipped. Let the doll be. And the pastor didn't want to believe it. He thought it was just silly superstition. But something about the pattern felt too precise to leave alone. Every time he moved the doll, the renovation team ran into another problem. Every time he left it alone, the day went smooth. Eventually, he started to take the advice of the deacon and he stopped touching the doll altogether. He told the renovation team to leave it open because he wasn't sure what he was going to do with the doll, but he just decided to let it be. At the end of another work day, the pastor went back down to the basement just to stare at the doll to see did he get any feelings from it, did he channel any energy. He started wondering who made this, what were they praying for, what does that piece of paper say? And then he started to get an image in his head of a woman long ago working in silence, hiding her faith inside the wall. She was a short, heavy-set woman constantly looking over her shoulder and frantically trying to find a place to put the doll at. But he thought, okay, maybe I'm just picturing that because I'm trying to make sense of what's going on. So, of course, he turned to what he's familiar with, prayer. He prayed for a couple hours in the basement with the doll, asking if this is evil energy, please remove it. If it's for protection, please continue the protection. He just wanted a clear message of what was going on. So the next morning when he woke up, he didn't feel the urge to move the doll. He was really not even worried about the doll throughout the day. Something in him started to feel less curious about it. So that day went smooth. He went down to the basement to see the work that the renovation team did for the day. And then he saw the doll and it was almost like a reminder that the doll was there because he completely forgot about it. And as he's looking at it, he almost started to correct it. Like, well, maybe if they put this here, or they should have added this, or oh, maybe I should replace that thread because it's a little faded. He wanted to enhance the doll. So he decided, what if I place a new doll here? If my energy is next to it, maybe I'll feel less suspicious because I know the intention that I have. So he took a small piece of cider. He took out his pocket knife and carved it, wrapped it with strips of his grandmother's old prayer cloth that he keeps on the altar, and took some of his holy water and just anointed the doll. Then he took a piece of paper and wrote the scripture Psalms 91 3 times. He folded the piece of paper towards him because for all workings that you're doing that's positive, that you want to bring in the protection, prosperity, abundance, whatever, all the good stuff, you want to fold it towards you. You want to bring that energy towards you. That's just a side note. So he took that piece of paper that's now nice, neat, and folded, and he tucked it into the prayer cloth that was wrapped around the doll. He then looked at it a little funny. He didn't know if his energy would work like that doll was inside the wall, but he set it beside the old one, this time face to face. And then the next day when the construction team came, he told them the first thing you guys need to do is seal this wall back up. He wanted to hurry up and seal it up before he changed his mind. So months later, once the renovation was done, he noticed that it was a smooth transition. He was concerned about the elders because they have their assigned seats. They like to sit how they sit, but now they're sitting in new pews that has a new placement. And he was worried about them catching an attitude, thinking this young boy trying to come up in here and change things, but they were happy to see it. The chairs felt more comfortable to them. It was softer on their tush. It didn't squeak as loud. The back, there was back support now. Like, they were happy with it. New members began to join because they seen this old raggedy building all of a sudden look like a new nice church penthouse. The first Sunday morning of service, the sun seemed to shine a little bit brighter through the windows, the new windows. There were so many people in attendance, they had to get extra chairs to seat everyone. The word felt like it flowed out of him naturally. People had good testimonies. There was good energy in the congregation. People afterwards were talking even more than usual. This choir seemed to sing a little bit better. At the end of the first Sunday service of the newly renovated church, once everyone was gone, the pastor took a seat in the first row of the new pews, and he sat and just looked around and noticed everything looked exactly how he dreamt of. All the new enhancements, the new finishes, the colors, the pews did feel comfortable. And he realized everything I envisioned is now here. The energy even feels better. And then he started connecting the dots. Like when I was making that doll, I was envisioning how I wanted this church to look and feel. And now here it is. So while he's thinking that, he's also thinking, well, maybe this is the energy that the woman had that I imagined who made the first doll. With everything going wrong in the area, the church still stood still. Maybe she wanted longevity, protection. It's almost like she casted a shield around the church. And now he casted a new energy within the church. And it almost seemed like the dolls were now working together. And this made him emotional because now he felt like he had a piece of his grandmother in the church as well. For all this time, he associated root work with a towards his grandmother, so he didn't want anything to do with it because he felt like he would be celebrating it. But instead now he's seeing how hard his grandmother worked to keep the tradition alive, to pass it down. Like, yes, I got in trouble for this, but I still want you to do it. So instead of looking at his grandmother as a victim of root work, he started looking at her as if she survived it. She worked really hard to pass it down, so it will almost be disrespectful for him to push it to the side when his grandmother went through all that to make sure that his mother knew it and to make sure that he knew it. And then one day when he has kids, he's going to make sure that they know it as well. And he's not going to have the story of, I got in trouble for this, I got used for this, I would get starved for this. It would be, I took this root work and I enhanced this church. I embraced my root work and look what I created. He would have something tangible to show. So this story isn't just another Southern ghost story. It is a memory that is shared by one of the members of this church who wants everyone to know how easily we forget that our ancestors blended spirit with survival, hiding their power in plain sight. In old Southern Hoodoo, dolls like that were never considered evil. They were vessels, physical containers for energy, protection, or prayer. The red strings sealed intention, and the hair connected the doll to the person or family. The herbs inside amplified the purpose. It was probably basil with some cleansing salt, maybe some brick dust. And the paper, that was probably something out of Psalms, a petition, or the name of whoever the doll was meant to guard. Now, these dolls were never meant to control or harm. They were shields. The people who made them were often enslaved or newly freed. Folks who had to find ways to protect themselves when their faith was demonized or restricted. Their language was stolen and their traditions were called evil. So they had to get a little creative. So they prayed over candles and called it light work. They used honey jars but said it was for sweet blessings. They hid their spiritual tools literally under the floorboards of the church, behind the walls and under the altars, because they knew their prayers needed a body, something solid to live inside. So this doll in this story isn't a curse, it was a guardian. Someone likely placed it there to make sure the church remained safe because it was mostly Black people there. So they probably had one doll that represented the entire congregation, the deacons, the pastor, the first lady, and placed it in the wall to cover the whole building. But let's have a discussion down below. Let me know, is there anything that your great-grandmother, your grandmother, grandmother, your mother, your father left behind that you feel has such good energy behind it, whether it's their house where you still feel their energy, a car that they used to drive around, a purse they carried, a watch they wore. What did they leave behind where you really feel their energy in it? What tangible item you feel like holds a lot of their energy? But thank you guys so much for tuning into this video, and like I always say, as above so below, as within so without, as a universe of the soul. Until next time, you guys, Ashe, baby.